I can't be too judgmental because I know when I started in this space too, I'm like, wow, people are just in this for the money. But it's true. If you want to serve people and you want people to actually take action, they have to pay. Otherwise, they
Yeah.
just will not be motivated. And I do pro bono work every now and then. I've even comped my course for free for somebody that's like, I really want to take your course. I just can't afford it. Here, take it. And I haven't gone back to check if they've done the work. I bet you they haven't, like how we talked about.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, we need to stop asking women of color to do work for free. That's wild.
Welcome to the Chingona Revolution podcast, where we will bring out your inner badass Latina, overcome self-doubt, help you gain clarity, and pave your own path, all while leading with courage. I am your host, Latina coach and speaker, Erica Cruz. Hello, friends. Welcome back to Chingona Revolution podcast. On today's episode, we have a guest who's already been on the podcast. The first time that she was on the podcast was in January to talk to us about her book release, Cultura and Cash. And this guest is Giovanna Gonzalez, also known as Gigi, or the first gen mentor on social media. And this time she's back on the podcast to talk to us all about the book writing process. So a lot of my clients have a goal of writing a book. It's their ultimate goal in their courage project. But I also know that a lot of you who listen to this podcast also have the goal of writing a book. It's definitely one of my goals as well. I want to make sure that I write a book in this lifetime. And we just need more women of color authors. We need more women authors. We need more Latina authors and more people of color authors. And Gigi is such an incredible individual because she transparently shares with us the struggles that she had to overcome, how much the book writing process was, like what the investment was, not just with time and energy, right? But also financially. Like she actually shares numbers with us. She shares different lessons that she learned. She shares with us the type of publishing that she did, which is hybrid. So if you have a goal of writing a book, or if you're just interested in learning more about the project of writing a book, stay tuned for this episode because it is a juicy one. Let's get into it. Gigi, welcome back to Chingona Revolution podcast. How are you?
Hi, Erica. Thanks for having me back again. I'm good. How are you, friend?
I am good. I'm so excited because the last time we had you on the show, we were talking about Cultura and Cash and how the book came to be, what was in the book, your money story, the Eva endorsement, which is so exciting. And now it's been like half a year or so since the release date, or not even. It feels like it's
a
been
little over. Yeah, it came
okay.
out in January of 2024, and we're now in August, so a little bit over half a year. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us just how, because obviously when you and I spoke, it was just going to be released. I was lucky enough to get a copy of it ahead of time. So thank you so much for that. But now that the book has been out in the world, and I know that today's episode is more about the how of the book, how you wrote the book, how it came about, especially because a lot of my listeners have an ultimate goal of writing a book. And as you and I spoke before we got on the podcast, we need more Latina authors. But first, I just want to do a quick, just like recap on what has changed for you. How was the book tour? I'm sure you've had so many amazing conversations with people. And just, I mean, even I texted you the other day and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm at dinner with my cousin and she was telling me that she read your book. And you were like, does she know we're friends? And I'm like, I think she knows you're on the podcast. I don't know if she knows that we're friends, but it's just so cool to like have people like you in my space and be like, oh yeah, my friend wrote that book. Yeah, she wrote that
Well,
book.
you know
So
what's funny? Dulce messaged me too on WhatsApp, and she's like, "Look, my sister just finished your book," and she sent me a picture of her at the counter with the book. It was just so cute. So yeah, it's just cool to really see it out there in the wild.
yeah. And so, I mean, if I had that experience at dinner with my cousin, I can't even imagine how it must feel for you during all of the book tours. Because as you're writing the book and you're not sure how it's going to resonate with people, right? It's not a social media post where you're going to get immediate feedback. So tell us, what is life after publishing a book like this? What has your experience been?
It's such a good question, and I'm glad you asked me because in doing my research and preparing for the writing and launching process of the book, there's so much knowledge about how to get it done, but there isn't much about the post, right? What happens after? And I was so scared because I didn't know what to expect. So luckily I made friends with authors that I admired, and I asked them like, what's to expect? What should I do to prepare? And people were just like, it's going to be chaotic because you're going to be pulled so many directions, to do press or podcast, things like that. So just make yourself available. Make sure that you're available. Don't take on too much speaking work, because I also work as a public speaker, because you're going to need that time to promote the book, right? So that was an income loss that I had to prepare for, because it was instead time I was using to promote the book. But what has the journey been like? So fulfilling. And I'm so happy I can say that. And I hope that anybody that is aspiring to write a book or in the middle of the process, I know it can be very lonely in the beginning when, like you said, you don't know if it's going to hit or not. But as somebody who really put in the work and had my community support to get this resource out there, I'm really glad I went through the process. It was hard. We will talk about the hard parts, and there were a lot of fun parts too. But overall, it's been a very fulfilling journey to see that something I poured so much of my heart and energy and money to. We'll talk about that too. How people really have accepted and embraced the book. I still get tagged on social media. People are still reading the book and discovering the book. I'm still on tour. People are still showing up and selling out my library events. So that's very, very rewarding. And financially, it's also been great. Not so much book sales wise, and I'm happy to dig into that too. I'm an open book about what royalties and all that stuff looks like. But regarding my speaking practice, my speaking fee has increased on average about 4 times since before the book published. And that's because there's definitely a new level of authority when you're a published author on a specific subject, as opposed to just being a TikToker. So it's a long answer, but it's been a very fulfilling journey.
No, that was a great, great answer. And I love that you talked about an income loss, because it was income loss in short term. Because I even recall that when you were writing the book, you also weren't doing things like brand collaboration. So you had to say no to a lot of things in order to free up your energy and your mental, emotional capacity and intellectual capacity for the book. But now that it's done, to your point, now you are able to charge 4 times what you were able to charge before. And I think sometimes people look at, well, what's going to make me the most money? But like, we have to think bigger picture. And you did
Mhm.
such a good job doing that. And I'm sure deals fell into your inbox that you were like, oh my gosh, am I really going to say no to that? So
Mhm.
can you just like explain a little bit of what was your thought process around that? Whenever you maybe
Yeah.
received something that you were like, "Oh my gosh, I have FOMO that I'm not going to do this."
That happened a lot. There were cool opportunities where I could have been a part of a documentary. There was this cool opportunity in DC. There was a lot of cool things, that we get as influencers in our inbox. But 2022, which is a year I started writing the book, I had declared that year the year of no. So to be able to say no to more things so I could say yes to myself. So that helped a lot, that I already kind of had practiced that intention the year before. And then in 2023, I was still writing it. But how did I manage that? Regarding work, yes, I knew that I had to slow down paid work. I tried to balance it all, doing brand deals, speaking, and still writing, but I wasn't making the progress that I wanted with the book. So that's when I recognized I'm going to have to scale back. Otherwise, it's going to take me forever to get this book, or I might not ever get it done. And I didn't want to risk that. So I actually put speaking at a complete halt. Maybe I would do a little virtual speaking here and there that didn't require the travel, or I would be extremely picky. Like if it absolutely made sense and it was a high profile client, then I would do it. But otherwise, everybody was getting emails saying, "Hey, thanks for the interest. Unfortunately, I'm in a book cave right now, focusing on my book. Let's stay in touch, blah, 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 blah." And people were very receptive and understanding. "Oh, that's amazing. Can't wait to see the book when it's out." So it actually really impressed those clients. And I think it kept me on their radar. What did pay the bills, though, a lot of that time for me was the brand deal. So even though I still wasn't accepting every brand deal, with that kind of work, you can do it at home. There's no travel. You edit the video at home, film it at home. So that was much easier for me to earn an income that way. So any new income kind of came through brand deals instead of the speaking. What else I did? I had already saved money because I knew I was going to take an income loss, right? From not being able to speak as much to focus on the writing process. So that was what I planned to do. We do very little brand deals and then focus on writing, not do any speaking. But then as I started getting closer to the launching process, I noticed how much things were going to cost, like hiring a publicist to help me promote the book, hiring a project manager to make sure all the pieces were moving correctly. And even though I had enough money to sustain my lifestyle, my monthly expenses, I needed that additional income for the additional expenses of launching the book. So then that's when I had to take on more brand deals than I initially planned to. And that was hard. It was hard to juggle being an influencer. I know it sounds ridiculous saying it out loud, but you know that being an influencer, it's a lot of work. There's a lot of back and forth
Totally.
via email, yeah, negotiations,
Yep.
invoicing, yeah, a lot of stuff people don't know about. So yeah, basically creating content while writing the book was challenging, but it's totally what allowed me to take that income hit. Because yeah, it's funny, my accountant, so the book again launched in January of 2024, and for I would say the first half, so January through June, most of January, definitely January through May. So January through May, I didn't work. Again, I was just promoting, doing free local TV, doing podcast interviews like I did Chingona Revolution, different article interviews, features, things like that. Those things are great and they're clout, but guess what? They don't pay, right? They
Right.
don't pay. Yeah, so it's just promotion to the book. And I remember my accountant messaged me in May, and they're like, we're looking at your books and it's showing that you spent all this money, but there's no money coming in. Is this correct? And then I said, yeah, it's, and again, I knew that was going to be the income loss I was going to take, but even they were surprised. Like, what is going on here? Why aren't you making any money? But you're pouring a bunch of money out. And it's like, oh, I'm promoting a book. Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Oh my gosh, that was such a transparent and helpful and useful answer. Yes, brand deals. I think sometimes people are like, "Oh my gosh," even like being an influencer, you just kind of like post videos, but I don't think people recognize that it's a whole production process, right?
Oh
We
yeah.
are
It's
the
like a little
writers.
commercial. Yeah.
Exactly. We are the
Hmm.
actors, we are the writers, we're the editors, we're the producers, we're the
Makeup
creative
artists,
directors. Exactly. The makeup artists. And
wardrobe,
then, yep. And then we send it off to the,
set.
client. And then sometimes they're like, redo it all. And it's like
Yeah.
the almost just like there's also so much mental energy that goes into the creative
Oh yeah.
process to ensure that we write a script that feels authentic to us, but it also feels authentic to the brand. And I mean, I know you that you would never work with somebody who's not in alignment with you. So like
Hmm.
you also care about, how the brand deals come out to your audience. So yeah, there's so many other things that go on there.
Hmm.
You already talked about so many amazing things I want to get into, but let's maybe scale it back.
Sure.
When did you know that you wanted to write a book? Has this always been a goal of yours?
No, I had the realization it was January of 2021.
That was a
Yes, fairly
very
recently.
quick turnaround.
Was it?
Yes. Usually people dream about their books for years, but
Mhm,
that is incredible. So when you decided, because I think the first thing whenever we want to do something is deciding we want to do it. So you
mhm.
decided in 2021. What happened after that that allowed you to start writing this book?
Yeah, so I started writing it, quote unquote, and I say quote unquote because I didn't have a plan. So now looking back, I really wasn't making the kind of progress that I needed to. But I was also building out my content because I became a content creator on TikTok in March of 2021. And I
Mhm.
very quickly learned that it was impossible to do both to create a brand from scratch and also set up the business and do the bookkeeping and everything that a new business requires while trying to write a book. It's just not
Yeah,
going to happen. So, and I actually see a lot of women that make that mistake. They get excited because they see all the cool stuff that I'm doing online and they're like, I want to write a book too. And I'm like, I love that for you, but wait, you have to wait. You have to be in a place where you're sustainable, like, and be able to
totally.
take that income loss like I was, right? Because
Yeah.
it's gonna happen. Yeah. So again, I made the decision that I wanted to write the book in January 2021. I ended up focusing my energy on TikTok instead in June of 2021. And then for the next year, I was committed to building the brand, growing on TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram. And then in May of 2022 was, I believe, when we got notice that I had won the TikTok Latinx Creatives Grant. So I got $50,000 in funding, which definitely helped me cover the publication costs, a lot of these expenses that come up with the book. So once I actually had the funding, that's when I'm like, okay, I'm responsible for this grant and I want to be a good example of what can happen when you invest in emerging Latino talent. So it was in
Mhm.
July of 2022 that I actually hired a book coach and when I really got serious about the writing process.
Yes. Okay. So you pretty much talked about the importance of delaying goals, which is very different than not taking any action. But what you're saying is taking action, focused action, so that
Yeah.
you can then be able, because you can do everything you want. You just can't do everything you want at once. And I had a similar situation where I wanted to start a podcast from the beginning and I ended up waiting. And once I waited, the podcast just came so naturally. And
Mhm.
for you with the book, had you started that when you were just starting your content creation journey, the book could have maybe taken you a lot longer. I mean, it really was divine timing, right? And I remember the TikTok grant because I applied for that as well for a conference. And in the end, I'm
I
like, you
still
know
think
what?
you should have gotten it, by the way, because I loved your idea for the Latina conference. They missed the mark with that one.
I know. But actually, as I looked at the people who won, I was like, no, those were like the people who needed to win. Like, and it was, and not saying that I shouldn't have won, but like that wasn't the time for the conference. Like I needed to work on the
Mm,
things that I've been working on now. And the conference will come when the conference comes. And
mm.
I truly believe that I'll probably end up getting more than $50,000 in sponsorships from all of the relationships that I've built with brand deals and with different companies that I've worked with. So I would have loved to get it, but I also am very aware that it probably wasn't the right time. And that grant was exactly what kickstarted you into writing this book. So can you, and
Mhm.
you talk to us about how this grant supported you in some of your expenses. And I remember talking to you and you're like, girl, the grant is gone. You're like, it's gone. I've already spent it all. So can you share with us how, like, what are some of the expenses that go into writing a book? Because people don't know what goes into it. People think they just need to write something and then find like a publisher and then it's all easy peasy. But there's a lot of different things that go into it, especially if you want to finish the book in a certain time. And maybe if you could tell us the expenses and then the different roles that what people did, right? Like what did the book coach do? What did the project manager do? What did these different roles play in the book writing process for you?
Yeah, and I actually do have the numbers because I hosted a free webinar. I think this was in May. Yeah, about book tips with Gigi, and that was something people were very interested in. Like, hey, you won this $50,000 grant. How did you use that money? Right. So, the $50,000 was very quickly used on me deciding to hire my book coach, which that cost me around $18,000 for 6 months of one-on-one coaching. It's definitely on the higher end of book coaching because I had met with other book coaches and they were a little bit cheaper. But my book coach who I hired, Stacey Ennis, she was incredibly experienced, and I just knew she was the right fit for me, and she was worth every penny that I paid her. And the rest of the money, which was around 32-ish thousand dollars plus, that went to my publisher. So the kind of publishing I did is called hybrid publishing. So I know you've had Ariana from What Would Frida Do, the book What Would Frida Do on the podcast before. She talked about traditional publishing. So for anybody that doesn't know, traditional publishing is when a publishing house gives you a book deal, aka pays you to write a book. Hybrid publishing, I paid the publisher to write a book. And people are like, why would you ever do that, girl, when there's people out there that they can pay you? There's a lot of reasons that made sense for me, mostly that I was able to retain full ownership of my content and also full editorial control. I wanted to be the person that had the last say in how my book cover looked like and what the title was, what the content of this book was, because that was very important for me to be able to write the book that I wanted to. But that comes at a big price, and that's you having to fund this project yourself. So yeah, with the publisher, like I said, it started out at like 32,000, and then there were a lot of add-ons later. And then past that, so again, that's just the $50,000 grant, boom, like it's gone, right? On those two things, the publisher and my book coach.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I still needed money to sustain my living expenses, right? So I had savings that I was using aside for that. But what other book costs specifically did I have? Well, I also included an audiobook. So I added that on. That was an additional $15,000. And I also had to invest into the launching process. So people are like, what is the launching process? People get really excited about writing the book, getting the book deal, but then a big part of this whole project is a promotion phase, right? Think about, I don't know, the
Totally.
Barbie. Yeah, the Barbie movie, right? It comes out, it doesn't just come out and oh, go watch it, right? Like Margot Robbie went on a press tour. You see her everywhere in her pink Barbie outfits, getting the word out and getting people excited about her project. It's the same thing with the book, so even though you can feel that you did magnificent work, you still need to be out in the community, meeting people and telling them about the book so that they get excited and share with others and get the word out. And that process as a whole, because again, I do have the numbers in front of me, that cost me $55,000 plus. I'm happy to dig into the numbers if you guys are curious. I also want to say I don't want to intimidate anybody who has dreams of writing a book and hears this like, oh wow, good for you, girl, that you were able to get a $50,000 grant. But like, what about the rest of us, right? First of all, like there are so many grants out there, and I encourage you all to take the time to apply to them because the money is there. We just need to put in the effort to look for it. And then regarding the launching process, I mean, the way I saw it is this was an investment in my brand, in my business. So, and all of these things were write-offs for my business, right? So it
Totally.
made sense for me. Yeah. And again, I've seen the return on my investment now with the increase in my speaking fee and other cool opportunities that I've had access to. But yeah, high level, that's kind of where we are with the cause.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for being so transparent with us and sharing all of this. I was going to ask, what about for those people who maybe are listening and are like, that's so much money and are almost getting discouraged? I love that you talked about grants. I was going to ask you that specific question and then you answered it. So, where would you recommend, and you might not know this answer, but is there like a specific place that you recommend people go look for grants? Or like, what would you, let's say that like somebody came to you and they were like, Gigi, I have this goal to write a book. I don't already have a massive business. I really want to make sure that I write this book and I'm willing to do the work to promote it, but I have a smaller budget. Like, what guidance would you give them, or where would you have them go look for grants?
Yeah. So again, I would say make sure that you have a sustainable business where you are able to move some of your energy towards the book writing and launching process because they both require a lot of time and energy, and that your business is still sustainable. You're still able to pay your bills. But regarding where can you source grants? For me, I got really lucky in the sense that I had access to grants through creator programs. So both you and I were a part of the TikTok Latinx Creatives program, which that program, if you remember, it was unpaid. And I remember a lot of people felt some type of way because we were required to post 4 times a week, right?
Yep.
Using a specific hashtag for, I think the
Yep.
program was 6 or 8 weeks. So it was
Yep.
work. It
It
was
was work.
work, but yeah. And a lot of people I know did not apply to the program because they're like, oh, it's unpaid. What's the point? But again, you kind of have to think about like, well, where can this lead to in the future, right?
I'm so glad you're saying this. It gives you access. Not everything is about making immediate money, right?
Yeah.
Even as you were talking about all the different podcasts that you've gone on. I mean, I know that people learned about your book when they listened to our podcast episode because they told me, and I'm like, that is worth it. Like, if just one person wants to buy your book from a
Oh,
podcast
yeah.
interview, then that's worth it. But of course, so many more people do. So I'm so glad you're saying this because people are like, just thinking about short term when we have to think bigger picture. Sometimes I do free speaking engagements so I can
Oh,
collect
yeah.
footage
Emails.
of me
Uh-huh.
speaking,
Yeah.
literally, so I can get more speaking engagements. So,
Yeah.
how did the program, because that's also what got you connected to the grant for some of
Mhm.
the endorsements, right? So, like, tell us about how being
Exactly.
in the program in the end ended up actually paying you.
Exactly. Yeah. So the grant that I applied for was only open to alumni of that incubator that you and I did, which there were 150 people that were accepted into the program.
Yep.
I know from seeing the applications, 2/3 of the people applied. So I'm still surprised. And I'm like, wow, 50 of y'all really didn't go for this money? Because,
Right.
yeah. And especially knowing who your competition is. So it's only 150 other people and not just anybody all over the world, right? So again, that was a very cool opportunity where I'm like, wow, had I not done this free incubator program, I would not have the ability to even apply to this. Because people always ask me, oh, it's such a cool grant. How can I apply? And I'm like, it's because I was alumni of this
Yeah.
program, right? So again, that was a time that we're doing work for free or something that isn't paid in the beginning made sense. The same thing with the LinkedIn Creator Accelerator program that you and I were both a part of too.
Yep.
We did a lot of programs together.
We
So that
did.
was in it was what, spring of 2022? I think that sounds about
Yeah.
right. Do you remember? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so that one, they were luckily transparent from the beginning that it was paid, and that's just
Yeah.
a different culture with LinkedIn versus TikTok. That one, I think in total, I think at first they told us we'll pay you 15,000 for being a part of the program, and then they opened up an additional $5,000 that you could earn if you did some extra credit. So ultimately, I got $20,000 in grant funding from being a part of that incubator program. So, like I said, for
Yeah.
me, that's been helpful being in the creator world and getting access to this money. If being a creator isn't your thing, that's totally fine. There's so many grants out there for small business owners, especially Latinas. Unfortunately, I just missed one with We All Grow Latina. Do you see that one? Uh,
Yes, I did see it. I missed it
yeah.
too.
Oh,
I,
yeah. I'm sure
I
they'll
missed
have
it
it
too because I
again.
was traveling.
Me too. I was with my grandma in Mexico. There was a lot of stuff going on, but I'm sure I think they've had it. This is like their third or fourth time that they've had it. So I'm sure they'll open it again in the future. But definitely rooting for anybody that applied for that because, yeah, that closed August 15th. I know the hot Cheeto, not hot Cheetos, Cheetos they have to Huella has been one where people have won like $25,000 in funding. I know our friend Corporate Pero Latinos, like she got access to that grant. Some other people I also know got access to that. Where can you locate these grants? Is definitely a search, right? So for me, I'm always kind of on social media, and usually people will share, "Hey guys,
Yeah.
apply for this grant." Yeah, so two creators that I think of that are usually like apply for this grant or share awareness on grants that are available are Estrella from at
Yeah.
Cafecito con Estrellita. Yeah, she's
She's so
amazing.
good at sharing things. I love
Oh
her.
yeah. Yeah. So you subscribe to her newsletter or if you follow her on stories or on her Instagram, she will share those opportunities as well as Paulette Pinero from Unstoppable Latina is her handle. And she's also a good one that if you subscribe to her newsletter, she sends blasts every so often of all the grants that she compiles. So again, they're out there.
Amazing.
And you also have to let people know, like, hey, I'm looking for funding. If you see anything, please send it my way. So you have to put it out there too.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, thank you so much for sharing the financial part of things. Tell us a little bit about the actual creative part and the book writing part. Were you like when you were in school, did writing come easy to you or was
Is that your answer? No. Oh my God. No, not at all. I'm glad you asked that because no, it's
Yeah,
not.
yeah, I figured. I don't know what I had a hunch. I don't know if maybe we've talked about it offline at some point, but same for me. I had a hard time writing essays and papers in school, but yet I want to write a book. And I think the difference is that you have such a passion for the what you wrote in the book, right? Where you were like, this information needs to get out there for my community, for my audience. Like this information and my story together are really important to share, which allows you to come from like a place of service rather than like, oh, I have to do this for like this damn class. But I think people may have a desire to write a book, but because they maybe don't consider themselves the strongest writer, they shy away from it. So, I mean, your response tells me that you probably didn't enjoy writing when you were in school.
No, it was like pulling teeth. Yeah. And for the same reason, because the topics weren't as interesting to me, right? It was like, oh, write a 10-page paper about the Civil War. And you're like, oh, right? Where yeah, now it's like something that I'm deeply passionate about. I have so much lived experience and you want to share it with the world. That's a different kind of energy. And that definitely fuels you to actually start the writing process.
Amiga, I hope you're enjoying the show. We are going to get right back to today's episode, but I just had to drop in and check with you. How are you feeling? How are things going? If you find yourself frustrated or maybe shaming yourself because you have not taken the action that you wanted to take, maybe you are just tired of starting and stopping or overthinking or worrying about what your coworkers are going to think about you or your family members are going to think about you if you finally start that project that you've been wanting to start. I just want you to know that I see you. I feel you. I overthought starting my Instagram page for 2 years before I actually started it. So I get it. I totally understand. And if you find yourself in this position where you know that you want to make 2024 your year and you're ready to stop procrastinating and start taking action, then I invite you to Courage Driven Latina. Courage Driven Latina is my signature program where you will legit change your life in 90 days because we are going to help you take action on a courage project in 90 days. I also recently introduced the Courage Project Paths, which I'm so excited about. So you essentially get to pick the path that you want want to work on, and you can work on more than one path because the program is now 12 months, right? But we recommend one path at a time. And I'm so excited about these paths because we have a confidence courage project path. So if you want to speak up in your relationships or maybe speak up at work, this would be the perfect path for you. Or if you just want to establish more self-trust. The second path we have is the content creation courage project path. So this is perfect for you if you want to create an Instagram page, a TikTok account, or perhaps you are ready to launch your own podcast. We even have a whole podcast course inside of Courage Driven Latina. The third path is the career courage project path. So if you know that you want to be at the director level or the VP level, or maybe you're ready to change your job to a different job, then this would be the perfect path for you. Maybe you're like, you know what, entrepreneurship is cool, but it's not really for me. I really want to be a boss ass mommy. Then this is going to be the path for you. And last but not least, we have the Chingona CEO path. So if you know that you want to be an entrepreneur and you know you want to start your business, whether it's a coaching business or a physical business, if you want to sell a product, then this is the perfect path for you. Again, because this program is now 12 months, you can work on more than one path. Join the waitlist for Courage Driven Latina by going to the link down below in the show notes, because when you join the waitlist, you are going to be the first to know when we open doors, and you may even get some early access. So ensure that you join the waitlist. I cannot wait to work with you. We have some incredible women in this program, and the fact that it's now a year long, we've already seen so much transformation. I can't wait to work with you. Let's get back to the show, and don't forget to join the waitlist. Yeah. So did you try to do it on your own before you hired the book coach? You mentioned you had, but like once you got the grant, was there an attempt for you to just like, okay, I'm just going to use motivation and go with it? So what was that structure like when it came to planning your days for writing? And like, did it work when you tried to do it on your own? Tell us about that.
It did not work when I tried to do it on my own because I didn't have any structure. I put myself on a schedule where, oh, I'm going to focus Thursdays and Fridays for writing days. And then I realized that was a big mistake because I would give all my energy to Monday through Wednesday, and then I'd be depleted by Thursday and Friday. So if I had to start all over again, and if I was doing it on my own, I would have put writing in the beginning, right? To make sure that it actually gets done like on Monday and Tuesday, and then the other work later. But yeah, for me, what was very motivating was having skin in the game. And that's by investing in a business, and not a business coach, in a book writing coach, right? Because again, it was a big investment of $18,000. If somebody listening to this is like, well, I don't have that kind of money, I completely understand. There's different ways to get skin in the game at different income levels, right? So you're able to join, maybe instead of doing one-on-one coaching like I did, maybe you do group coaching, right? With the book writing coach. And that's much more accessible. Instead of an $18,000 investment, maybe it's $8,000 for 6 months, right? Or you can join writing groups, so just other women that are also working on books, and you kind of co-work remotely together, and you're able to kind of be focused. You can get an accountability buddy. There's different ways to get support that don't necessarily mean pouring out $18,000 like I did.
Yeah, yeah. And you even mentioned that there was more accessible or more affordable options. You chose to go with the person that you chose to go with because of their experience level, and they probably understood like the mission behind the book, right? And I'm sure there were so many other things, but yeah, there's more options. So I definitely agree that whenever like when you pay money, you pay attention, right? When you invest in something, you have so much more skin in the game. And for that reason, none of my programs are free, but also that's what the podcast is free for, right? And sometimes like I've gotten emails from people about like, if you really want to help the community, like your program should be free then. And I'm like, if my program was free, it would have like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people enrolled and nobody showing up to the calls. Yeah. Literally just like would start it. And I've done that too. Like during the pandemic, they had all the free courses, all the universities had the free courses. I want to say Yale had one. And I was like, oh, I want to take this course. And I was so interested in it. And I downloaded it, never started because I didn't pay $1 for it.
Of course. No, it's true. That's human nature, right? If it doesn't cost us money, we're like, oh, I'll get to it when I get to it. And then it just never happens. So I can't believe somebody had the balls to tell you that. I know I can't be too judgmental because I know when I started in this space too, I'm like, wow, people are just in this for the money. But it's true. You know, if you want to serve people and you want people to actually take action, they have to pay. Otherwise, they just will not be motivated. And I do pro bono work every now and then. I've even comped my course for free for somebody that's like, I really want to take your course. I just can't afford it. Here, take it. And I haven't gone back to check if they've done the work. I bet you they haven't, like how we talked about.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, we need to stop asking women of color to do work for free. That's wild.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's also, well, one, people won't actually do it, but two, we also deserve to have a living, right? How else are we supposed to support
Yeah,
people if we're not making any
right.
money?
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
so many aspects there. So, okay, now that once you started writing or working with a book coach, you had structure, you had somebody holding you accountable. I'm sure, did you have like weekly calls or biweekly calls? And I'm
We
sure you
had
had goals.
yeah. Yeah, we had biweekly calls, and then she created a writing plan with me. So
Oh,
again, I'm like,
great.
"Oh, I know I want to talk about these different topics." And she's like, "Okay, so chapter 1 should be done by this date. Chapter 2 should be done by this date, right?" And of course, we adjusted if there was things going on in life, but just having that structure created by somebody who'd been through the process before and not me just guessing, I think it's going to take me 2 weeks to write chapter 1. No, it'll take you more like 4 weeks. So let's go ahead and adjust the timelines, right? So having that expertise from an experienced book coach was really helpful. Having that writing plan, having those deadlines, and knowing that I was going to meet with her every other Wednesday, and she was going to ask, "How is this coming along? Did you get stuck here? What can I support you with?" So, knowing how expensive her coaching was, I just knew that I had to give it my all, and that's really why I got the book done.
Yeah. Wow. So with having this person checking in with you biweekly, what else should we know about the process? Not necessarily about writing, working with the book coach. I think I'm thinking of two questions. Let me
Sure.
start with one first. I have a statement and then I have a question.
Okay.
So I think there's this notion in the Latino community, in the Latina community of like, oh, you should just be able to do it yourself. Or like, ¿cómo le vas a pagar a alguien, to help you with this? How are you going to pay for somebody's service to do X, Y, and Z? But what you've just shared has it's evidence as to why it is so helpful to work with somebody who's already gone before you, right? Like our white counterparts, their parents went before them. Like they
Mhm.
have the mentorship maybe in their immediate family to help them navigate things. It's almost like I think about it like hiking a trail. And I think sometimes our culture expects us to get to the top of the mountain on our own. And we're like trying to cut all the trees ourselves when like sometimes our counterparts have a perfectly paved little path for them, right? And I think investing in a book coach is almost like somebody who's showing you the path. Like you're
Mhm.
still going to face your obstacles, right? And you're still doing the work. You're still the
Oh
one
yeah.
climbing the mountain, but having somebody there in your corner that is helping you get there in a more seamless way, like why would we not accept the help? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and this reminds me, it takes me back to the writing process was very emotional. Who would think that writing about like investing in Roth IRAs would be emotional? But it was very emotional. There's so much self-doubt along the way. So I would even argue that she was like an unpaid therapist, right? My book coach. So it
Yeah.
wasn't just about the technique of writing, but also the emotional toll with writing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I can't even imagine if I would get emotional writing papers that overwhelmed me. Imagine like writing a book that has important information for your community. So, yes, thank you for saying that. And then I think the second question I was trying to get to was what else should we know about the book writing process that maybe came as a shock to you?
I didn't realize how much energy it would take. I thought it was going to be the sort of thing that I could, log into my computer at 9 and crunch away for 2 hours with a little cafecito and be done for the day and then do my other activities, create content, speaking, everything else I was doing, traveling for work, right? And then just repeat it the next day. But those 2 hours, let's say those 2 hours of writing, they felt like 6 hours of work. And it's because it's intense writing. It's not just, fluff, right? It's a personal finance book, right? So it has a lot of
Right.
information in it. So you have to be strategic about what you write and how you present the information to the reader. So that was a shock, just being like, oh my God, why am I so depleted if I only work for 2 hours? But writers aren't meant to sit at a desk for 8 hours. That's not how the creative process works, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just different. It's very different than having like a 9 to 5. So I had to learn that I had to pace myself, and to pace myself, I had to learn how to manage my energy, which I know is super important as an entrepreneur, to know when you're most awake and most energized and excited and creative so you can take advantage of that time. I really struggled to find my rhythm at first. Like I said, at first, because everybody, that was what all the research said and all the podcasts. Oh, start it in the beginning and then you're done. Guess what? I'm not a morning person. My brain isn't actually awake until after lunch. So I learned that the hard way after struggling so much in the morning and not feeling that I was making the progress that I wanted to. I learned that after lunch, that from 1 to 5 p.m., that's when I did my best work. And that's when I sat down and
Mm.
got shit done, right? So learning that and protecting that time and not letting anything happen during that time, whether that's doctor appointments, coffee chats, interviews, nothing happened because I protected that time because I knew that was my energy time, right? To be able to focus the book. So yeah, coming up with the writing routine and sticking to it is going to be key to actually getting it done
Yeah. Oh, I love that you mentioned specifically a routine and then finding a routine that works specifically for you
for
because every
you.
person is different.
Mm.
Yeah. What about when the book actually came out? Like whenever you received it for the first time? I mean, I remember seeing your stories. So,
Oh,
what was that experience like for you?
receiving the book. I thought it would
Yes.
be more emotional because I know other authors had cried, but instead I just felt like really happy. And you know where else I was unexpectedly happy? During my photo shoot. So I did a new photo shoot, brand photo shoot, posing with the book in different outfits, right,
Yeah.
at a professional photo studio, and I could not stop smiling. And then the photographer is like, "Can you try like a different smile? Because you have these big smiles." And I'm like, "I'm honestly just so happy that I can't stop smiling." And I think it was because it really felt done. You know, for a year and a
Yeah.
half, I was just working on this document on Word, and to actually have the finished product that I'm taking photos with and like really pretty clothes that I feel good in, it just hit different.
Yeah.
So yeah, that those 2 days, like I remember, just felt really good.
Yeah, I bet. It's an actual manifestation that, like if you think about manifestation work, it begins with like a thought and then inspired action and then it's in reality. But for you, it was really like the book was in your brain. You took it out of your brain through the action of writing it, and then you were able to physically hold it in your hand. So something that began as a thought was then a physical manifestation, not just for you, for so many people to read and for so many people to have their life changed. It's like mind blowing, right? It's almost like just like the way having a child is mind blowing with like, oh, wait, that thing came out of like my physical body. For you, it's like it came out of your thoughts. It
It's my
really is a manifest.
baby.
Yeah,
I'm
it is
child
your
free.
baby.
I birthed
Yeah,
it.
you did.
It is my
You
baby, yeah.
did. Wow.
Yeah. And we're not the first people to compare pregnancy with book writing. It's actually it's a parallel that people always bring up because there's so many things about like needing community and you're baking it and the emotional toll. So yeah, it's funny that you kind of caught that on.
Oh my God. I've never heard that before, but it makes so much sense. Yeah,
Oh
that
yeah.
makes
Hmm.
so much sense.
Hmm.
I guess, is there anything that I haven't asked you that you want to share with the audience? Maybe questions you've gotten that you thought were important, or maybe something that shocked you either through the book writing process or something maybe you wish you knew before.
Yeah, great question. I would say don't underestimate the launching process. And we kind of touched about this like earlier, how people like somebody like me, I could have been like, well, I've worked on this a year and a half and I've spent this much money on it. So of course people are gonna love it. And a lot of people make that mistake with their first launch. I know I did. My first launch was not this book. My first launch was my investing course, which guess what? It's also gold, but because I didn't know how to properly launch, it wasn't, let's say, as successful as my book. I wouldn't say it was a failure because I still made profit, but I launched completely different because I learned, right? It's not just about like you knowing that you put in the work, it's about being able to communicate to the person that you made this product or service for that they're going
Totally.
to get value from it. Yeah, yeah. So again, that goes into like you knowing that you're going to be in this space where you're going to be constantly talking about the book on podcast interviews with media, just different ways to get out in the community, right? Speaking engagements, free library events. Like, again, a lot of these were unpaid, but I'm doing it
Yep.
because it gets word out on the book. So, yeah, don't underestimate that process and don't do it alone. You know, if you can't afford to hire a book coach, again, you can work with an accountability buddy for free. You can get into a low cost writing group with other Latina authors. But when it comes to launching, you do not want to do this on your own. Whether that means just having an assistant for a few months to help you pick up the extra work. Because think of it this way, you don't want to spend so much time, energy, and money on creating this baby for it to flop at the end because you didn't go through with the actual launching process. Because, like I said, that's a stage of its own. So that's something that I've gotten a lot of compliments from other authors. They're like, girl, you like executed this launch like a boss. And it did take my bad launch with my investing
Mhm.
course, right? For me to kind of learn, ooh, launching matters. It's not just like, hey guys, buy it.
Totally.
It's not just one post, hey guys, buy it, right? So I just want people to, and that can apply to any product or service. It's not just for a book. Yeah, to know the beast that launching is, to prepare for it. And the way that I prepared for it this time was by hiring support. So I had the support of my publicist, my project manager. I had several assistants. So yeah, there were a lot of hands on deck to help me get the word out on this book. It wasn't just me.
I'm so glad you brought up launching because my audience hears me launch my programs all the time, right? Courage Driven Latina or Magnetic Mastermind.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes people think like, oh, I've already created it and I've already told them. But even if you've told them 8, 10, 15 times, there's still somebody out there who hasn't heard it. So do you still get messages from people with like, I just came across your book?
All the time. All the
Exactly.
time.
Exactly. So we think like whenever we get annoyed with ourselves about talking about something, that's when people are just starting to listen. And when it comes to, especially with you and I both leveraging social media so much, people don't just follow Gigi and Erica. People follow hundreds or maybe thousands of people, right? So they're not going to see every post. It requires consistent effort, showing up. And then it also requires like knowing that your product or service is going to change people's lives, because sometimes I think also in our culture there's a like resistance to selling, or like, oh, I don't want to, promote myself too much, or I want to be humble. But like you can be humble and promote your service and your product, because can you imagine if you would have played small and if you would have just like only posted a couple of times about your book, how many people out there wouldn't have had access to your book because they wouldn't have even known? So the like sales is almost, it's service, right? Like
Yeah.
other companies aren't questioning whether or not they're going to go sell a product. But sometimes I find that like my clients and my programs who go through launches as well, they're like, oh, I don't want to make it feel like I'm selling people. I'm like, you are providing service for people. Like you are helping people. And I think your book is the perfect example of that. So I'm so glad you talked about launching, and I'm so glad you had the experience you had that taught you the lessons, right? Like, of course, we would have hoped that your other launch would have gone like splendidly, but like that needed to
100%.
happen for you to have this launch the way that you did. Oh, I'm so glad you
Oh,
talked about that.
absolutely. No, absolutely. And now I'm glad that I had that experience, right? Because it really woke
Yeah.
me up for a much more important project, which was this book. I also want to hold space for any women that do feel, oh, I don't want to promote myself. I should be able to do this for free. And that's how I felt 3 years ago when I started this. I actually was crying with my friend because I'm like, there's this possibility for me to make money as a financial educator, but it also upsets me that people have to pay to get access to this knowledge because it should be free, right? Because we can all benefit from this information. And my friend was the one that kind of had to convince me of like the same thing you just said. You're providing value, you're providing a service. You also deserve to get paid your worth for your knowledge, right? And
Mhm.
a lot of that's cultural, right? Of just being self sacrificing, never expecting
Totally.
our share. Yeah. So it's very important to work with other women that have been there like you and can guide women through those challenges, because we don't even notice we have those demons there, because again, it's part of how we were raised.
Exactly. Yes. So speaking about launching and promoting your book, I know you have a couple of events coming up. So can you tell us the dates and the location? Because this podcast will be released before them. So that way people can add it to their calendar and make sure that they come see you.
Thanks, Erica. Yes. So the audiobook version of Cultura and Cash didn't come out when the book launched in January. It's going to come out September 10th. And that's because I had to narrate the book myself, because I did not like the narrators that my publishers found. They were giving like Alexa and Siri. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to do this thing myself. I know. So that took that was a whole process too, like having to take voice lessons and practicing. So the book was recorded in May. It'll be out September 10th. You can actually actually pre-order it now wherever you get your audiobooks. So whether that's on Spotify, Audible, Libro FM, iTunes. If you go to culturaandcash.com, you'll find the links there. But to celebrate the release of this audiobook, I am going back on tour. So I already went to Florida, LA, New York City, San Diego during the spring. Yeah, so during the spring tour. Now for the fall tour, I'm going back to New York. So anybody that's interested in New York, I'm hoping to hit the Brooklyn area. This will be the weekend of September 28th. So save the date. Before that, actually, I'll be in the Bay in San Francisco, which, Eric, I know you're there a lot, but you're not there right now, right?
I'm not there right now, but I will be there then.
Ooh, okay. So it'll be the week of the 16th. I'll have to link up and see if you're available. But it'll be the week of the 16th. I'll be there actually for most of that week. I'm gonna have an event in San Jose, and I'm looking to also have a second event in Oakland. So if any Cultura and Cash readers are out there and you want to come up and say hi, just kind of save that week because again, we're still sorting out dates, but that'll be coming that week. And then LA, I will be back in LA. People are like, "Where in LA?" I don't know yet. We're still sorting that out. If I had to guess, it'll probably be near the Downey area, and that will be October 12th. So if you want to stay in the know about when these events are going to happen, the actual addresses for the venues, the best place is to subscribe to my newsletter. So when that information is out, you're the first to know.
Lovely. And you mentioned to me about the audiobook, and I forgot to ask about that. So can you just tell us about what that narration process was like? Because that probably felt like not writing a whole nother book, but it was probably a whole nother project.
Yeah. Well,
I love audiobooks. I'm so excited.
No, me too, especially when they're narrated by the author. So I knew that how much my reader would love it, but I also knew how much I was going to hate the process because I had done research, and it's not the sort of thing that you can just go into a studio and wing it. You very much have to already have either acting experience or narration experience, which most people don't. People like you that are podcasters and have been doing it a long time, you're better at it because you're just used to being in front of a microphone, but not all of us are like that, right? So I actually had to take voice lessons with a very prominent voice coach. Shout out to Denise Woods. She's worked with like Halle Berry, Will Smith, Idris Elba, like a lot of really cool people. I know, yeah. And she was fantastic. But yeah, she helped me enunciate like my R's. I would always drop off my R's. Like instead of saying number, I say number. It just would fall off, right? So little things like that really matter when you narrate an audiobook. I learned that to avoid cotton mouth, you need to drink apple juice, which you would think you should drink like hot tea or something, but actually apple juice really makes you salivate. So it avoids that cotton mouth feeling. Yeah.
I'm learning so much.
Oh, yeah. No. And you should definitely try it for podcasting too, because I know we talk a lot in podcasting, having some apple juice handy. But yeah, it's very much also energy draining because it is like acting. Think about it. You can't read like Cultura and Cash is about, no, right? You have to be like Cultura and Cash is like just how like the narrators do at like, I don't know, TJ Maxx, right? They're like super excited and bubbly. You have to do that too, because otherwise you will lose your reader. So yeah, that's the whole process. Overall, I'm glad I put in the work because I know that there's so many of my readers that are busy moms and they don't have the time to sit down and read a book. So they've been waiting for the audiobook version. So I'm really excited to get that out to the community.
Yeah, I can't wait because anytime I'm out on a run or in the car, I love audiobooks. But when I really, really want to get to the nitty gritty of a book, I look at the physical one and listen to the audiobook at the same time. Like when it's an important book for me, I do both. Yeah. And I'll put the audiobook on 1.5 or 1.2x speed, right? So it's not on the normal speed, but that way, because sometimes with audiobooks, I can be distracted. I have to be doing something that doesn't require a lot of attention, right? Sometimes if you're driving in an unknown area, you'll get distracted. If you're driving just like down, from LA to the Bay when it's just Highway 5 the whole way, like audiobooks are perfect because you're just on one road. But so I'm super excited about it because audiobooks are totally my jam. I was going to say something else about, like how whenever you're speaking, when I was in college, I worked for a radio station as an intern, and I started getting a little bit into voiceover and commercial stuff. And so I started practicing for it. And then my schedule changed at school, and I ended up not being able to continue the internship. So I didn't end up having any commercials. But now we literally do this as content creators. And I remember that we were taught, like, you never sit when you're doing voiceovers. You have to stand and you
Stand up.
have to like use your hands and you almost over exaggerate. And the reason is there is no visual supporting the audio. People are only listening. So you almost have to add over emotion and over explain things, not over explain things, but you have to like overdo it pretty much because that's what keeps the people engaged. So to your point, it's really, really draining. But I love the apple juice tip. I'm going to try it.
Yeah, yeah. And one last thing I want to share about the process. The audiobook recording for me, it could have been cheaper. I think I could have gotten it done for $8,000. The option to do it for $15,000 was to have a director in the studio with me. And I was going to skimp out because, I had already spent so much on the rest of the book. But it was my book coach who said, you know what, because you're not a professional at this, because this isn't what you do for a living, I would highly recommend you have a director there. And again, she'd done this many times. And it
Mhm.
was a great investment because I knew
Yeah.
that if I sounded in low energy or if I mispronounced something, her job was to catch it and to be like, wait, we need to redo that again. Right. So that way I knew that all this work wasn't for nothing. It was high quality work. So yeah, I'm really excited for people to get a chance to listen to it.
Yeah. And the thing is, Gigi, you're going to do this once and that's going to be out there for like ever. Right. So
Yeah.
getting it done right the first time and just knowing that, yeah, what's an additional, what is it, another 8K in the long run or another, no,
Yeah.
less than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the long run, when this is going to be a piece of art, and not just art, but like a piece of information that's going to be out there for people to listen to, and like I'm sure people will listen to it more than once. Like they're probably going to have to come back to the book, and to have it done in a way where you feel really proud of it, I think is totally worth the investment, especially because like if you have the resources available, why not, right? Like this is your baby. So I think you made the right choice.
Thanks, Erica. I'm so excited.
Yay! I can't wait to hear the audiobook. So we will link down the website for the book in the show notes so that people can go there and check the exact dates that you'll be in New York, in the Bay, and in LA. And I will see you in the Bay. Let's definitely coordinate to make sure that like I can help you with like the promotion and stuff. I am so excited for you, especially because I was supposed to make the one you had in LA last time, and then I had a speaking engagement. So I had to go
Yeah.
back to the Bay. I was so mad, but this is going to work out perfect.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to see you. It's been a while since the We Are Girl Latina Summit, right? That was in
Yeah.
2022. So we've talked a lot. We've texted a lot, but yeah, I haven't seen you in person in a while. So that'll be fun.
Yes. Yeah. Well, Gigi, thank you so much for coming back on the podcast and being so open with sharing this information. You are changing lives, not just with your book, but also through being so transparent with this book writing process and just making it feel more real for all of the Latinas and women of color that are listening to this podcast. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for both writing the book and for coming on and being so transparent. I appreciate you.
Thanks,
And I
Erica.
just
No,
feel
and
lucky to call you a friend.
I want to say the same to you. You were one of the VIP influencers that received my PR box, and you got the job done, right? Not just like a little quick tag. You like showed the little video, you did the unboxing. So you were an early supporter also by having me on the podcast and having me again. And I look up to you so much too. So I'm really glad that we got a chance to reconnect again because I had a lot of fun. And I can't wait to see
Yes,
you in the
me
Bay.
too. Yes, I will see you in person. I can't wait to give you a huge, huge hug. So for all of you listening, if you haven't listened to the first podcast interview, go back and listen to it. I want to say it was January 23rd that it came out,
Yes. Uh-huh.
or 28th,
Yeah, that
23rd.
week. I think
Okay.
that week. Uh-huh.
All right. So yeah, go back to Chingona Revolution and just look for Gigi, the Cultura and Cash episode, so you can listen to that too. Gigi, sending you so much love. I will see you on social media, and as always, reach out if you need anything.
Same. Take care.
Thank you so much for joining me this week. Make sure to visit theericacruz.com. That's Erica with a K, where you can subscribe to the show so you'll never miss an episode. You can help this podcast grow by supporting me with an Apple Podcast rate and review. If you took anything away from this episode, I invite you to take a screenshot and share it on social media so that your favorite badass Latinas can also check it out. Be sure to tag me at the Erica Cruz. That's Erica with a K, because you know I want to see it. If you're ready to join the revolution and be a part of the Courage Driven Latina community, visit couragedrivenlatina.com to get more information and join the waitlist. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week.